I defy there was nobody in any of the pits, the Barney pit in particular. I don't believe anybody in the Barney pit receives £35,000. I mean, I knew what they were getting, because I kept a book and I went into all the interviews with all the people I was involved with anyway, and we were the top wage men. We was getting more than one of them, and there was £35,000 mentioned. I know what I got 20,000, and I was in the pit for 35 years.
When you, if you don't mind me asking you this, when you did get your 20,000, what did you do with it? Did you buy a house, or did you invest it, or?
I invested my money. I had seen too many people going out in the afternoon to the pubs and have a good drink, and at that time they started the all day drinking, and you were going down at night for a pint after maybe a wee walk on the roads after we finished up, away for a walk or maybe working in your garden or something like that, and these folk were going up the road through it, and all because they're spent their money foolishly, I thought, something. But I even brought financiers into the pit, because I went to Union Skills, and I seen this was a common talk round what we were getting told. So I went to the management and made arrangements, because they were going to do a job too, and they wanted to know what to do with their money. And I brought them in, and we used to sit in the boardroom or down in the consulting room, and we used to bring these financiers, not tell them what to do, but to listen to them, to the people. And some of them taking the advice and some of them didn't. And I knew a lot about taking the advice, and they never fell down below. They were above the breed line anyway. And I was one of the ones that did go and invest my money.
Did many people start businesses?
Well, they started wee small businesses down there at highways and that. Quite a few taken up wee businesses to start with. But as you know, at that time there were nothing for the government to do anything for small business people. Rates and different things put them all out of the game.
What about buying houses? Did many people buy their houses?
Well, there were people who bought their houses that would never have bought a house before. They happened to buy my own house. But my intention was always to buy a house.
But some people who would never have bought a house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they did sensible things with their money, some of them.
Well, some of them did sensible things. Well, as I told you, I used to bring people in for the welfares and different things to talk to the people. I did that to the amount of members I had. I mean, I was only what you call a tenth of the members that worked in the pit. Well, at least a tenth of the men got an opportunity to listen.
Yeah.
And the management used to come into the meetings to listen to, because they knew they were going the same road as us.
Did the strike affect? Did the closing of the pit affect many other businesses?
It was a disaster to this village, and especially surrounding villages, because there were no income coming in. So they weren't. I mean, if you were running about there, redundancy money wasn't bad, because we were entitled to so many weeks at a percentage of our money. That was for the first 23 years. But after that went away, it didn't show the first year, but it showed about the third and fourth year. And it just become decent. I mean, the amount of people left this village to start with, because of the pit shutting and different things. We went through a disaster in 1962 when the pit shut, because of the shaft caving in. And half the men for this area went away down Tingling to work. I was one of the people who did Tingling work for a year myself. And that split up all our family. And I mean, ours wasn't the only family. I would say there were about 30 or 40 families in Northern Lake are still doing England. They would never have been doing England if the pit hadn't shut. But the strike, that was the be all and end all. But quite a lot of folk just after the miners went back doing Tingling to look for jobs, but at that time they were talking about shutting the pit soon, so they didn't take any loan.
Robbie,
Were you involved in any of the national negotiations during the strike?
Well, I'll tell you, I was negotiated with the Conco. I was the chairman of the Conco for the South Ayrshire, and I realised what was going. That was another thing in the miners' strike. Used to have to meet a delegation for the NUM and other unions, tradesmen and that. And what I tried to do was, being chairman, was to be fair and get coal out to some of the old people and some of the folk with families. And they would be sitting down in the office and would come up and they say, well, that is not getting coal, that is not getting coal. They were sitting down at a warm fire down in the office all day, but nobody else was to go to heating. Well, I thought the idea was to get as much of the stocks down as possible with getting our coal out. And we did very well in this area getting the coal out. We used to have a meeting once a week, and you were doing a list of folk had requested to get their coal. There weren't many turned down, right enough, but the idea was to get the coal out to people that needed. Well, we didn't need coal in the winter time.
Yeah.
The deputies and oversmen were responsible for the health and safety.
Mm-hmm.
So they might have been seen as a very strong authority, very disciplinarian maybe. But how are the relations with the men, the face workers and what have you, down the pit?
Well, as far as the officials in the pit was concerned,
I mean,
when the pit was working, the relationship was very good. Mm-hmm. It was just at the strike time, they were a wee bit kind of jealous because we were going out and we were getting maybe 3 shifts a week, came just with the rota, or 2 shifts, but they were getting nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's when the bitterness would come out between them. But that relationship come back into the pit, opened up again. There's only 1 or 2 people in the village, and you'll get that in every village, as you say, there's always a bad apple in a barrel. And that bad apple, they cause a lot of weather.
Yeah. You used to check for things like contraband and what have you. I mean, there must have been quite a few kind of wee dodges and things that went on.
The parents say this, son, we had an easy job as far as contraband was concerned, because it wasn't just your life they were worrying about, they were worrying about everybody's life. Now, I had family who worked in the Cairns when the explosion happened in the Cairns pit. Well, having a thing next door to you, this come through, and I mean, all the occasions I was in the bar in the pit, I think there were only 3 cases of contraband in the 20 years I was there. 3 cases. And the boys wanted to take cigs down the pit.
And they'd have been dismissed immediately.
Everybody would even the worst man in the pit, who would be a troublemaker, when he can do and be taking contraband in the pit, because they were going to kill him. Yeah. We were not bother that way. But the biggest thing was keeping discipline between them, Ken. Keeping order between them, because the miners was always angry, falling out with one another. They didn't just sit down and say, "You're going on, old pal." It was always, "I'll knock your head off," or something like that. Well, you just step in sometimes and tell them, "Come on, we're here to do a job, not to be fighting." Your job on a Monday morning was a welfare officer, or the wife's not talking, or something wrong with the range or something. You got other stories in the Monday morning. It was the pattern was good at times between you, and they realised that they talked to somebody because they had a bad weekend.
Yeah. Just to finish off, what's your? We've asked other people this, but what's your best memories? What's your best memory of being down the Barney? Your best memory?
I think go down the pit. And at the end of the day, you used to come out to the pit bottom. Well, as I told you, you had a stint today, and once you were finished, you made your way out to the pit bottom. That was to get up the pit in the first hour or the second hour, because there were a difference of half an hour down the pit, and you used to get there, and the banter was in the pit bottom at men telling stories. It was unbelievable. Best comedians in the world work in the pit. Storytellers and different things. They're brilliant at it.
And And what about your worst moment? What's your unhappiest memory of time down
The
there?
worst memory was very a disaster. I was supervising a loading pipeman with a cement placer doing it, but that's really big. And you work with compressed air, and somebody put a plug of wood into it, and it choked up, and the compressed air bolt up, and it knocked it all off. It spins, and it swung round, and it hit two men in the leg. The pipes, can you imagine a big theory thing going about in a confined space? And they couldn't get out the road. Two of them got their leg broken, and we were to go in and do the first aid because that was your job. And I was getting him with the back of his leg hanging off. That was terrible to me. I went in and had to take dead men out of wall and that, but it's not the same when they're leaving. If they're dead, you just rat them up and take them out. But if they're leaving and they're bleeding and carrying on, a lot of things to do that way.
Did you have to speak to the relatives of the...
Well, I was a kind of man, because I did the superannuation. Bob Parson used to be the chairman of the superannuation for Scotland, and I knew him well, and I used to pick up the superannuation agreements. Well, when he died, it was a member of our union. I used to go and see the old woman along with the coal board. I was to get sort out their corn coal and all that, and so they weren't getting hung back on uniforms for getting their pensions and that all sort of too. I used to go with the coal board man, sit down and talk to the next of kin who was entitled to money, and then some of the family invited to make sure they just understood what was going on. It was one of the things that I did in my area as a union, and I was well respected through the Scottish Coal Board back then. They tried to do this in other areas, but the management sometimes just wasn't here to tell you. I got away with a lot in the pit because of who I was.